A very good morning to you. Welcome to the West Ham Voice on a Friday morning. I hope you've all had a good week, and I dare say the England fans out there must have had a wonderful week because let's congratulate England, shall we, on a great semi-final result against the Netherlands. Look, we haven't played well in this Euro 2024 tournament, but we finally turned up on Wednesday night, and we also had a spot of luck with the penalty decision. Some say it was a penalty. Others were saying it's quite dubious. But what a goal by Ollie Watkins to win a semi-final. You know, that was a superb strike by that player. And I guess many West Ham fans must be kicking ourselves at how we didn't manage to land him when the opportunity arose a few years ago. Okay, we got Ben Rama, a bit of hit and miss at times, but Ollie Watkins is a class act, and he probably should be our England number 9 from this moment on. I don't think it will happen in the final, but I do think he absolutely deserves it moving forward in his career. But of course, England now face a very excellent Spanish side in this final. And guess where I'll be on Sunday? No, not Berlin, but in Spain. I mean, who else apart from me can manage to book a holiday to Spain when we're facing them in the final of Euros 2024? It was pure coincidence. There you go. That's my planning all done and dusted. If anyone knows any decent English bars or Irish bars or anywhere where England fans might be congregating in San Sebastian in Spain, then please do message me so I can get together with them. Anyway, if you're new to the channel, please do subscribe to the channel. It costs you nothing to become a subscriber. My content is 100% free. So please do become a subscriber of the channel. And if you like what you hear and what you see, then please hit that like button as well. And there's also a little bell notification when you subscribe to let you know when the next show is on. Anyway, the theme of today's show is this. How do you turn a transfer budget of around £60 million or so into a budget that can buy up to about 175 million pounds worth of players? Stick with me and I'll explain how. Now, for several weeks, we've been told that our base transfer kitty is something like 60 million pounds. We're all aware that in order to build a better and stronger West Ham squad, we are still in need of another 4, 5, maybe even 6 players, or maybe even more than that, to the 3 that we've already brought into the club. And with such a small base budget of 60 odd million, it's been suggested that the sale of players is needed in order to increase that base budget. Now, of course, thoughts go to immediately Paquetá and Kudus and Bowen and players like that. Yet, in last week's joint press conference held by Lopetegui and Steiden stated that we did not need to sell players in order to buy. Now, I think what Steiden was alluding to was that we do not need to sell any of our key players, our major players, in order to buy others. Now we're hearing stories all the time. I've done the story about Paquetá, about Flamengo wanting to loan him and then buy him, and now that's died a death. And we keep hearing rumours about the likes of Liverpool, etc., probably wanting to come in for Jared Bowen, and now Newcastle for Bowen, and of course Kudus, and of course Alvarez. We keep hearing these stories over and over again. But I believe that we're pretty much safe in the knowledge that we're unlikely to see any of these players being sold in this summer transfer window. I guess if someone wants to buy Paquetá and the risk that goes with it, we might listen. But otherwise, I doubt very much we're looking to sell any of our key players. However, we are still willing to listen to offers for players who are likely to become fringe players. I don't want to call it that because what my understanding of Lopetegui is, he likes using his substitutes. He likes using a full squad. So I don't necessarily want to call them fringe players, but let's say players who are not likely to get as much game time as certain other players. And of course, I'm talking about the likes of Kurt Zuma, Danny Ings, Naifa Gerd. Yes, we've sold Kehrer and Benrahma for a combined total of something like £21 million. So by rights, that 60 odd million pound transfer budget should have or could or will have gone up to 81 million. But even with that modest increase, how many of you have worked out that we've already spent a large chunk of that 81 million with the purchase of Guilherme for 25 million and Kilman for 40 million? That's already 65 million out of that 81 million, leaving a mere 16 million pounds left in the kitty. No? Yet we're heavily linked to big money signings for several players, where in some cases deals look pretty imminent. Now, if we really do need to sell fringe players to boost our budget, the stories coming out over the past week or so certainly don't seem to be corroborating these stories in that any of our fringe players are on their way out anytime soon. We've heard that despite Southampton making a bid of £6 million for Danny Ings, and for West Ham to be willing to subsidise part of his wages for that offer to go through, Ings doesn't want to go. He wants to stay, and he wants to fight for his place at West Ham. His interview on the official website, the official West Ham website, was quite interesting, to say the least, in terms of its timing. We've heard similar stories that Kurt Zuma would also refuse to leave the club as well. But both players are in their final years of their contracts. So it would indeed be in West Ham's interest to move them on to get something back for the over 40 odd million pounds combined total that we've spent on them to come to West Ham in the first place. And we've also heard the other day that the barrier to Naifa Gerd going to Nice as a replacement or as a swap deal for Jean-Clair Todibo to come to West Ham United is that his wages are too high. Nice don't want to pay the wages that he's on. Now, I've got absolutely no doubt that if we did manage to sell at least these three players, we'd reap a tidy sum back, circa 45, 50 million pounds maybe. Of course, the highest of that would be on a Gerd. It would certainly inflate our transfer budget even further. But even that, with the recent sale of Kehrer and Benrahma, would take our kitty to what? 131 million? Don't forget, we've spent 65 of that already. Now, 131 million less the 65 is a reasonable sum of money, but certainly not enough for what we need to spend in bringing a number of players to West Ham United this summer. So what's the truth? What is the truth about our budget? Let's recap so far, because what we've done so far is we've spent 25 million on Guilherme, and we've also, Fotheringham came in on a free, but we've also spent 40 million on Kilman. So that's 65 million already. And add to that, as mentioned, it's been suggested that we're going to bid around 35 million for two players, Jhon Duran of Aston Villa and Jean-Clair Todibo of Nice. Plus, Steiden is meant to be winging his way back to Brazil for what many presume will be the 17 million pound purchase of Wesley Gassova from Corinthians. And of course, we're negotiating, give or take, the 10 million pounds that Southampton want for Kyle Walker-Peters to come to West Ham in return for 10 million and Flynn Downs going the other way. You add all that spending up, plus those who we've bought already, and you're talking about 172, 175 million pounds. And there's probably still one more player that we're going to need to get in midfield to add to that, which could easily see our projected spend in the summer of around 200 million pounds. So if we started with 60 million and we've added another 21 million, and we may add another 40 or 50 million on selling other players, how are we going to afford 200 million pounds on the players that we need to get? Let's look a little closer at each player that we're rumored to be still interested in. First of all, Wesley Gassova from the Corinthians. They're not doing so well in the league at the moment, in the Brazilian league. In fact, they're currently in the relegation zone. And the last thing that the Corinthian fans want to hear is for one of their prized players to be leaving anytime soon. Now, to be honest, so far, in all competitions this season, Gassova has made 37 appearances. He's only scored 5 goals with 3 assists. So it's hardly been a prolific season for him, which does make me wonder whether Steiden really is going back to sign Wesley Gassova for around about 17 million pounds. Now, I would not be in the least bit surprised if Steiden was out in Brazil for other targets as well that we're currently unaware of. I know he's going to probably go and talk to Lucas Paqueta as well while he's out there, but he's clearly obviously going out there to do some more business. But if it is Gassova, then the deal is likely to include the player probably to stay in Brazil until the end of the Brazilian season, which is at the end of December, where then he'll join West Ham United in January. And then, of course, we've got the interest in Carl Walker-Peters. Now, the haggling over, they want £10 million plus Flynn Downs, which effectively means that they're valuing Downs far too low for West Ham's liking. We believe he's worth about £15 million. Now, to be honest, I think this deal will be done. Apparently, Southampton have already gone out and bought another right back, or they're in the final throes of getting another right back in. And I think we'll do a compromise here. I think we'll compromise something like around £7 million for £7 or £8 million for Carl Walker-Peters to come to West Ham United, and for Flynn Downs to go the other way. And then, of course, we still apparently are in for Jean-Clair Todibo. Now, look, apparently Juventus are interested in the player. There's a strong interest, but they can't afford him. I think we are waiting for a firm offer for Naifer Gerd, and then we will immediately jump back in for Todibo, because we've been told that there's no way West Ham are going to have 5 centre-backs on their books for next season. So one of them, between Mavropanos and Gerd and Zuma, one of those 3 is going to have to go in order to accommodate another signing, maybe Todibo. And he's worth £35 million. And then the rumour that Jhon Duran, also valued at 35 million, has already apparently spoken to Lopetegui, probably to seek assurances about starting games and playing time. And that the young defender apparently relishes what he's heard. He relishes to play under Lopetegui above all other coaches at other clubs. But despite not getting a lot of playing time in the Copa America that he's currently at, he's focused on that while his agents do all the negotiating of a possible move. The final, I can't remember. I think it might be this weekend that Colombia are in the final. So I'm aware that I have yet to explain just how we're going to turn 60 odd million pounds into a budget, into a budget that can afford us up to around 175, 200 million pounds worth of players. Let's sum up yet again, just for argument's sake. Guilherme 25, Fotheringham for nothing, Kilman 40 million, Duran 35, Todibo 35, Gassova 17, Walker-Peters 20. Of course, that's 7 plus Downs. Grand total spend of around 172 million pounds. So have we been spun a lie over our transfer budget? Have we actually got more than the club is saying? Well, not quite. You see, the key words here are projected spend. 175 million pounds would be a projected spend commitment, and not the actual amount of money we would be parting with this summer. Now, the committed projected spend would, in most cases, be repaid over a maximum of 5 years for most of the players' contract duration at the club. So we would buy a player for, like we bought Guilherme for £25 million, but we haven't paid 25 million for him in this summer transfer window. So to date, we're likely to have parted with something like around 22 million pounds, which includes agents' fees on the three players that we brought in so far. And I'm being generous by giving agents around about £3 million per player. So, for example, with the likes of Max Kilman, a 7-year deal has been agreed, but the rules stipulate that the repayments of the money that we've agreed to pay can only be paid back over a period of 5 years. So we're likely to have made a down payment of something like what, £8 million plus 3 million agent fee, with the remaining 32 million to be paid over the following 4 or 5 years. Guilherme, much the same, an agreed fee of £25 million. He's got a 5-year contract, paid probably a down payment of something like 5 million plus the agent fees, which means that the remaining money that we owe on the player, 20 odd million, will be spread over the duration of his contract. Now, that means when it comes to the players that we're looking at buying, the same principle is likely to apply. So when it comes to, for example, Jhon Duran, if we agree a £35 million deal, potentially we'll put a down payment down of 7 million plus the agent fees, and then the balance of the 28 million will be spread over his contractual term. The same again will apply, exactly the same for Todibo. £7 million down payment. Wesley Gassova might be a little bit different. If it's a £17 million fee agreed, we might put a little bit more, might put a £5 million down payment down in balance, and 3 million agents fees, and the remaining over maybe 3 years. And of course, Kyle Walker-Peters, look, a fee of £20 million will be agreed. 7 million of that will be up front. Flynn Downs will go the other way. And that would be that. We would have paid all that probably all in one go. So that means that when it comes to what we actually pay out this summer, we might only pay about 60 odd million pounds. 11 million, including the agent fee for Guilherme, 4 million for Foderingham and signing on fee and agent fees, 11 million for Kilman, 10 million for Duran, 10 million for Todibo, 8 million for Gassova, 10 million for Walker-Peters, all including agent fees. So our outlay in the summer might be a cash outlay of 60 odd million pounds. There's your transfer budget. Of course, we owe more money, and many might say that, well, isn't that a risk, in order to have all this balance outstanding? But do we have to worry about that? Because we've got a commitment to pay over the number of years. But this is why West Ham United are investing in several young players now. Because you imagine investing in Guilherme, Gassova, Todibo, Duran, all these players purchased for the prices that we pay now, maybe in a couple of years' time, some of them or all of them could be worth £50 million or more each, which means that outlay, that investment that we're making, could easily be paid off in large chunks over the coming years. So it's a gamble, but every club does it. Every club uses this approach now. So when we talk about, oh my God, we've only got 60 odd million pounds to how are we going to possibly buy players? Well, that's how we do it. We pay down payments and the rest goes over a number of years. If you enjoyed that, please do hit the like button. Like I said, please do subscribe to the channel. Leave your messages. Tell me what you think of what I've said, and I'll see you all very soon.